There is social unrest in France as the Gilets Jaunes, please forgive my French, are about to go into a fifth weekend of protests and possibly riots, some would say. Is this the start of something big in France? Is social unrest going to spread from France over the rest of Europe like it has so many times in the past? Or is this thing going to fizzle out? Stand by for some real revolting men. They're not really revolting men. They're just men who are revolting. Cue the intro. Okay, I love the French Revolution. The history of the French Revolution just fascinates me. And I love to compare and contrast it to the American Revolution and why one failed. I say failed. You may disagree. And the other one worked. I say worked. You may disagree. But, so stick with me for just a second, because I got a lot of stuff in my head and there's a lot of bleh that wants to come out right now. And I might stray from the current events to the history, but the history really informs these current events. So anyone with even a modicum of historical information about the history of Europe is familiar with the French Revolution. The Tale of Two Cities, that's the big one everyone would know. The Scarlet Pimpernel, I'm going way back there. Or obscure, it's not way back, but it's obscure. Actually, no, the woman who wrote, Baron Orczy wrote the Scarlet Pimpernel, seems like she was involved in the revolution somehow. She was like a girl, she got displaced or something, so it's pretty far back. Anyway, all that to say, I love this topic. But from our standpoint, you know, here in America, looking at this thing from our viewpoint, is it happening again? Is a social unrest in France going to flare up into this major revolution that's then going to spread to the rest of Europe and the world and have major consequences for all of us? Because it has happened before. The French Revolution was one of the most important historical events of the last 300 years, 200, however long it's been, 1792 I think it was. It has everything that has happened in Europe and then from Europe's impact on the world has been colored by the French Revolution. So just a real quick recap of the French Revolution. 1792, France was the most powerful, important country in the world. They were broke, but no one knew it. They were trying to do some reforms. The reforms got out of control, and this supposedly popular rebellion from the ground up swelled up and just obliterated the whole country. Huge social unrest and upheaval. Everyone got killed. Not everyone, but a lot of people got killed. Napoleon comes out of that. We go into the Napoleonic Wars, and France is just on fire for 30 years, it seems like. I think Napoleon was undone finally in 1814, and it seems like there were still unrest going on from this thing as late as 1846, 1848. I think there were still reverberations from this thing. German unification kind of came out of this whole thing, and you know, World War I came out of that, and World War II followed straight from there. So we can go to the French Revolution and draw a straight line up to World War II, and of course World War II and everything that came out of that is still affecting us today. So is it happening again? Is France on fire? Is there going to be social unrest and upheaval, and are we going to go into this great period of change? I'm just a guy. I see some differences between this unrest and the original French Revolution unrest. The original French Revolution started at the top, believe it or not. There were a bunch of elitists, a bunch of nobles and royals involved in the start of the French Revolution. Now they lost control of it, and it snowballed out away from them. But it started at the top. There was like, I won't go into all of it, but it came out of this called the Estates General. They called up all the important people, and it started there. This current unrest is not. It's starting from the top. It's starting from the bottom, from the working class, these yellow vests, the Gilets Jaunes, and I'm sure I butchered that, but so what. So almost every revolution kind of has to have, revolutions from the bottom up don't work. They've got to have people at the top, some of the elites, some of the upper class, who protect it and encourage it and bring it along until it reaches critical mass. This doesn't have that. So my guess is it's going to sputter. That's my guess. Now there's some wild cards in this thing. The Gilets Jaunes, the yellow vests, are working class suburban and rural people. So they're not going to get a whole lot of sympathy. However, there is a very, very vibrant socialist movement in France that's always looking for a revolution and always looking to glom on to other people's hard work, like socialists always do. It's the same thing happened in Russia, actually. So they could jump on board this thing and try to blow it up. The other thing you always have to remember with France these days is they are 25% Muslim, that number's not exact. I have to look that up, but it's close to that, or they're approaching 25%. There's a very large immigrant Muslim minority in France, and they're kind of this unknown factor. You know, what do they do? They're probably not really on board with this whole Gilets Jaunes thing, because its underpinnings are more sort of a nationalist movement. These are everyday working French people at the core. Like I said, there's this fringe of radical socialists who sound like they're trying to glom onto this thing. So these are people who may not be quite for the unrestricted immigration and the very robust social safety net for immigrants that an immigrant community might prefer. So there's a good chance they don't want this to succeed. Where else? Oh, and the other thing though is this has spread to Belgium and the Netherlands. Not huge yet, but there's small things going on in the Belgium and Netherlands connected to this thing. They're calling themselves Yellow Vests, Gilets Jaunes. And this whole thing, supposedly, according to the elites in the media, is a result of this really high tax France put on fuel to pay for their global warming lunacy. And that tax, it doesn't take effect in Belgium and the Netherlands, obviously. So the elites are a little worried because, you know, why are these other yellow vests rioting? They have the whole reason for the riots don't really apply to them. And I think it's because this is a nationalist thing. These are people who are whether they would articulate it this way or not, are angry about the globalist elite, globalist agenda, and they're sort of worried about their way of life and their culture going away, more so than just the taxes, and maybe the taxes, of what finally got some of them out on the streets, because some of these people, it's a crazy amount of tax they put on the fuel. And out in rural France, in some of the suburbs, they don't have the public transportation that the urban centers have. And this thing could really, really almost completely destroy their economies out in the rural areas. So all that aside, that's my fascination with France and France's social movements. And I really have read a lot about it, and I could go on and on and on. Is this thing going to spread? The history says no, because it's this bottom-up thing, and bottom-up revolutions never work. For revolutions to work, there's got to be a lot of angry people at the bottom who have some support from key individuals at the top. I don't know that is the case here, and these people are going to eventually have to go back to work and do the best they can for their homes and their families with what they have available. And this is always the problem with right-minded people in revolutions. At the end of the day, what's important to us is what's in our immediate vicinity, our families, our homes, our communities, and we tend to want to try to do the best we can with what we have available. And my gut is that that's what's going to happen here. The Gilets Jaunes are just going to suck it up and go home and do the best they can. Unless this is one of those game-changing moments where there's a substantial number of people who've said, this is it. My way of life is too important. I can't survive this way. It's worth it to me to risk everything. And if this is one of those moments, then stand by, because it could get really interesting over there. We appreciate you, man.